Today's episode of Filmmaker U is brought to you by our sponsors OWC. Go to owcdigital.com for all your filmmaking and computer needs. And it's also brought to you by our other sponsors, AJA. Make sure to check out aja.com so that you can see how they can help you in your post-production needs. Hi, I'm Gordon Burkell from Filmmaker U. At Filmmaker U, we create courses for film professionals to deepen and diversify your existing skill set. You can learn more at filmmakeru.com, or of course follow us on Twitter at filmmaker_u. Every week we interview film professionals to discuss their work, and this week I'm joined by cinematographer Brendan Uegama, whose work includes Riverdale, The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, and Moonshot, just to name a few. Welcome to the show, Brendan. So how did you get involved or become a cinematographer? What was your breaking in story?
I feel like I have a few kind of things that got me in, and it was really just started as a old passion of photography. Always was, taking photos and doing the darkroom thing in high school, and I started doing action sports videos, and just always wanted to make movies, but I didn't really know the path. I didn't have anyone in the film industry in my family or really close friends or anything, so I just kind of started from the ground up, and I ended up going to film school for a year after trying videography for a while, and then from there I just kind of kept going and met with a few people that helped me along the way. My teacher at the time helped me kind of start out, and then my wife actually introduced me to one of my first mentors, which was Jack Green, and things just kept going from there.
What would you say was some of the important information you learned from someone like Jack Green that you use in your career?
I feel like Jack was such a kind guy, and he took so much time and patience to teach me. Like the film he was doing, that my wife Nicole was working on, was like a comedy with Ice Cube called Are We There Yet? And
Yeah.
he just took his time and brought me around the set, introduced me to everyone, showed me his lighting setups, talked about the lighting setups. I mean, and we all know how chaotic film sets can be, and how time pressure you have. And he was very gentle and very, he was an educator. He just wanted to teach and help. And I think and the respect that he had and the respect that he showed everybody on set was, something that I hope I've carried forward a little bit, and something that he very much was great at, was just making people feel very good and welcome, and taking the time.
Like you said, the film sets can be very chaotic spaces. So how do you stay focused on the goal, especially when the clock's ticking? Because I know that the AD's probably yelling, "We got to get this shot," and
Yeah,
what have you.
yeah. I mean, I always look at film sets and setups kind of like, time expands. Like you have 20 minutes to make a shot work, you find a way to do it. If you have an hour to make a shot work, you find a way to do it, but you're always up against that hour. You're always up against the time that you have to get it done by. But I think you just have to stay focused on it. You come in with a plan, you be as prepared as you possibly can be, and your day. No one wants to be behind. It's not good for anybody, including yourself, to be taking extra time to light and set up cameras and get the shot set up. So you really just come in as prepared as possible. I truly believe that the more understanding, as a cinematographer, before you get to the scene, what you're going to do, the better it is for everyone and for the story.
So how do you like to get on the same page as the showrunner or the director, depending on the project you're working on? How do you make sure you're understanding their vision?
Well, in prep, I'll sit down with the director, like, on a film or a pilot, like Moonshot, say, we spent 5 weeks sitting together right before we went to camera, and we just talked about every single scene multiple times. And we would do visual references, we would storyboard, or shot list, and walk the sets and kind of think about it and talk about it and come up with, is this idea right? Or is this idea, what way do we want to lean on this? And I think just through that conversation and trying to get a good understanding of what the director wanted with the film overall, and then you start to kind of see things his or her way and really understand how to achieve that. And
Mhm.
yeah, I think it's just like prep is everything to me. I think it's the most important part of being able to. So you really just have to, on a show like Riverdale, I would talk with Roberto, our showrunner, and I did 3 shows with him, so I got to really understand what he was after,
Mhm.
and I just kind of ran with his, best interest in mind and what I thought would be the greatest thing we could do for the scenes, and of course, working with each episodic director, we all just came together to try and get it done the right way.
What would you say? Because like I look at something like Riverdale or Sabrina, and then Moonshot, which is coming out. Um, what would you say, or is there? Uh, what are the different difficulties or tasks or problems that you might have to solve on a comedy versus something more serious like Riverdale?
Um, yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I feel like my tasks as a cinematographer, my tasks are, I mean, my number one job is to make sure that I'm telling the story at hand the best I can possibly do it, with what we have, and I feel like with comedy, it's really just being able to make sure that everyone has the space and the time that they need to be able to kind of do their thing. The actors and the director can get in there and work with them. Um, like everything, though, I mean, I think it's the same approach, just slightly different, you know, a different line for whatever genre it is. Um, I tried to think of making sure it wasn't, lighting wise, I kind of took a different approach to make sure it worked better for comedy than it did for noirish kind of, mystery. Um, but I think as a cinematographer, I kind of try to set up the scenes in the same way of making sure that everyone has what they need when they get to set.
So when you're not working on a project, um, do you collect like images or photos or film reels or anything to build up sort of a lookbook for yourself for inspiration or?
Kind of. I used to do it more. I feel like I used to actually have a folder on my computer where I would just save photos.
Mhm.
But I do find now I actually spend a lot of time just looking around on Shot Deck, just looking at new images that come up there because it's such a great resource and basically did what I used to do before that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm always looking at imagery. I'm always looking at things that inspire me, whether it's you know paintings or photographs or movies,
Mhm.
or just whatever I see walking around. I take photos of things that inspire, something I want to remember, or something that the way I like, the way light kicks off something, I'll always take a photo of it to just kind of put in the memory bank.
Yeah.
Can never stop thinking about it.
And do you shoot commercials as well? Or do you, because some cinematographers I've talked to sort of moonlight as a commercials DP.
Yeah, I've done a few, not a lot. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Because I guess like when you're doing something for like a television show, what are some of the, they have such tighter schedules, right? Like you have to get it within the day, you have a certain amount of days. What is something you've learned from shooting television shows that you use when you tackle larger projects like a feature or something?
Um, well, I still feel like, even if I get onto a feature, I still feel the same kinds of pressure of time. So I think
Mhm.
that the best thing that television has done is allowed me to work fairly quick, and
Mhm.
understand how to work within a time constraint, and yet achieve what I need to achieve. So um, I think it's been a great learning curve for working quick and thinking on your feet. But the thing, as soon as I get into features and have that extra prep time, I find um, it allows me to kind of think in a different way and work in a different way, because now I've had more of a chance to plan, more of a chance to kind of get on the same page as everybody, as the
Mhm.
director, and now when it comes time to getting onto set, things are a little more you know uh, already kind of on track, whereas I find in television things are a little more chaotic. It's a little bit
Okay.
more quick and you have to think on your feet a lot more.
Interesting. Now you're from Canada and you shoot a lot in the States, if I'm not mistaken. Uh,
Yeah.
I know a lot of young people entering the film industry who sort of dream of working in California, and in the States. So what are some things you learned in that transition that you would recommend to them?
So can you ask that again? Like, are you
So
asking
what
what?
like what are some, because getting to the States is pretty tricky in terms of the paperwork and what have you,
Hmm.
but what would you recommend to young people wanting to travel, like become a DP in the States? How would you recommend they start that process?
I would recommend if they want to come live in California and work down in California, that they should just go right away. You know, the sooner they start, the better, because it's just a time thing, really.
Yeah.
Um, you know, as far as like if you wait 5 years and or 10 years, then you're 10 years behind on that. You know, I got fairly lucky, I guess, but I worked on it, um, and applied for. You know, I live here now. I've been here for six
Mhm.
years. I have my green card, that kind of thing. So I'm fully, you know, working here now. But I think they just have to start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Now, is there a scene or a shot in your career that you're really proud of that was difficult to achieve that we should check out?
Um, there's a bunch, I guess, that were, I'd say, difficult to achieve. But you know, I find when I did Child's Play, there were a lot of things that were extra difficult because of Chucky being an animatronic doll and kind of working with them and the team and making sure it looked as good as possible, the doll.
Mhm.
Um, but you know, so I would say either there's a couple of big sequences in Child's Play for him, for Chucky, that would I would check out. One is when he kills the guy in the watermelon patch, or the very end sequence where
Mhm.
Aubrey Plaza is tied up. You know, those two scenes with working with him, the visual, because we did a combination of 90% of the film is done with a doll with Chucky, and
Yeah.
then there's a little bit of visual effects enhancements, and only a few times where we did a full CG doll. So you can see kind of the, you know, in the last sequence, you can see kind of the all three of them come together, and that was tricky. I felt like it was hard to make sure that we were doing it the right way and relying on CG when we absolutely
Mhm.
had to.
Did you feel any pressure, picking up the torch for such an iconic horror series?
Yeah, I mean, I think for sure. I mean, there's diehard fans for, you know, there's diehard Child's Play fans, and but we talked about it a little bit early in prep, and we just decided that we had to, you know, honor that the best we could, but at the same time make the best film we could with the,
Mhm.
you know, what script we were making, and approach that how we would any other film.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, I have one last question to ask you. We've been stuck in the pandemic for 2 years now. Is there a show or a movie you've discovered on streaming networks that you think people should check out?
I mean, I did a lot of watching during that time, of course, like everybody. I
Mhm.
did the usuals of like Tiger King and um, Ozark and all of that. But I think one movie that I went back and saw for the first, or that was out for way before, was Okja, that I
Mhm.
never had seen, and always put it off as a movie that, you know, it didn't interest me from the trailer at the time. But then when I saw it, I absolutely loved it. It's one of those movies that I still say I kind of wish I could see that again for the first time.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's one of the. What did you do it because of Parasite, or did you?
No, I don't. I maybe I can't remember. I can't honestly can't remember if I watched it because I'd seen Parasite before. Probably, but I remember just like I gave it a shot. I was like, I'm just gonna give it a chance. I'm watching everything. There's, you know, it's the pandemic. We have the time, and um, but yeah, no, it was a phenomenal film.
Wow. And you watched Tiger King, so are you gonna watch Joe versus Carol? The.
I don't know. I didn't watch Tiger King season two. You know,
Yeah.
I kind
Well,
of lost track a little bit,
yeah. Well, I
lost
think
interest.
I think we all sort of were like, oh, okay, well, we've seen that crazy world now. So, um, well, thank you
Yeah.
so much
Okay. Yeah.
for letting me interview you today.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate
And
it.
that's it for this week. Make sure to check us out at filmmakeru.com, or of course follow us on Twitter at filmmaker_u. Thanks again for joining us, Brendan. I'm your host, Gord Burkell. Thanks for watching. Today's episode of Filmmaker U is brought to you by our sponsors OWC. Go to owcdigital.com for all your filmmaking and computer needs. And it's also brought to you by our other sponsors, AJA. Make sure to check out aja.com so that you can see how they can help you in your post-production needs.